So I thought that since we've been using samplers over the last few videos, I would take a moment to show you guys the other sampler that's included with Native Instruments Complete Suite. And this is Battery, and I don't have it loaded yet. I've actually already pre-programmed a little drum riff, but let's get it loaded now and route it to it. So I'm going to hit F11 inside Cubase to open up the VST Instruments panel. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to find Battery 3, and we don't need to create a MIDI track since I already have one. I just need to make sure that I route it going to Battery 3. Okay, so I have MIDI track and going to Battery 3. Right now I haven't loaded any samples. Similar to the other Native Instruments, it doesn't have the default Cubase preset browser. You'd have to use the Battery preset browser right here where it says New. And for starting, let's just load the basic kit, and I'll rewind. Here, this way you'll be able to see my little drum groove down here a little bit. Here, you can watch it play. And it's just set to loop right now. Okay, so there's a basic drum sampler, right? We know it samples playback audio when it gets triggered by MIDI. Here's all the MIDI information. I can click on notes in Cubase to hear what each note does. And you can see Battery respond with whenever it receives a signal on that frequency. There are a lot of kits in Battery, and in my own opinion, the acoustic kits are actually a lot better than the electronic kits. If you're making EDM, dub, house, trance sort of stuff, I just don't find the sounds to be that useful, at least as far as like your core, kick, clap kind of sounds are that useful in Battery. It does have some cool special effects sounds too that I might layer in over the top. But here, let's try a few kits. So let's just change it to a pop kit. We can see what that sounds like. You can see all the different samples it's loading, and some of these kits, especially the acoustic ones, are really well layered, have a lot of parts to them. So it's not just one bass drum sample. There's actually, let's see if we can count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, keeps going. Oh, still going. I should click faster. Is that really? Yeah, so there's, in this one sample, there's actually 36 recordings of bass drums, just all in this one sample. And it just depends on, what velocity do you hit that note with, that determines how, what the mixture of how they get triggered is. So that's a lot. So, some of these kits, especially the acoustic kits, are really detailed, really nice. Here's that same loop sounds like through this pop kit. And apparently this F is a tom. Gets kind of annoying. We just delete that. All right. Let's try one more of the production kits here. How about this Dragon kit? This is sort of like a big old warehouse kind of distorted, grungy. Here you go, just listen. Okay, so that's can be kind of a cool sound too. On the electronic, well, first we have some percussion kits. These can be very cool. Let's try the North Indian kit. Now this won't be set up necessarily the same way as general MIDI is. I was able to actually just write this drum line out without really even using a drum kit, because for the most part I know where my general MIDI is. I know my kick drum is always there, my snare drum is always there. Obviously it's not right now because I'm on the North Indian kit. They don't have a westernized pop drum kit sound. I got some, sounds like Doblas, but general MIDI we got some hat, a closed hat, or close the hat, hit the hat, open hat, crash cymbal. Let's just hear what this sounds like through the tablas. So not bad, pretty cool actually. And we have some electronic kits as well. As I mentioned, I tend to find these are not as just as conventional as I want them to be. Again, a lot of cool special effects sounds, but the core kicks and claps I find to be somewhat lacking compared to a lot of the other commercial samples. Again, we'll delete that, I'm not even sure what kind of, that dark white noise kind of sound, noisy, reverb-y sound. Oh, let's do another one. How about this one? So that one can be useful. All right, some general controls for you to consider. At the top, you do have a master volume knob. Do watch, it's pretty easy to clip Battery sometimes. You might want to dial this back and just manage the volume entirely from within your DAW. Just dial this down and bring it into your DAW, that's fine. I'll do that fairly frequently. Down here you also have channel controls. I can actually, on battery, go up to 32 channels worth of outputs. So that means that right now the kick drum is coming out the master output, but I could say, you know what, I want you to come out 3 and 4. And if I look at the other kick, is still coming out master, but if I go back to kick 1, you can see it's coming out 3 and 4. Well, if I play it now, I haven't set up 3 and 4 in Cubase, so this isn't going to do me any good right now. But all I have to do is go back to that VST instruments list, click this little box, and activate 3 and 4. And now I'll have, I'm going to close this window just for a second. If we're using VST instruments, you'll see that I have my master, my 3 and 4. Whenever I play a kick drum, it'll come out here. Whenever I play anything else, it'll come out here. So I can pretty quickly and easily separate my sounds within battery to these different channels. This is really useful for creating individual mixes for different parts of your drum kit, or using things like side chaining, which we'll do later on. So anyway, it's a control you should just be aware of. You can change the output for each one of these samples. I'll put it back to master for now. Some of these other sounds, we can go down here and look at the cell. First of all, it'll tell you the name. It'll actually show you the waveform. Something that can be really useful is actually tuning a lot of these percussion sounds. So for instance, right here, especially, I'm not sure what fundamental frequency this is, but if the key of the song is maybe a half step lower, I might want to consider, I should click on the right one, but when I start editing, make sure you have the one you're editing highlighted with your mouse. You can hear I can just lower the pitch of that. And I can try to match it to whatever the rest of the song is doing. So a very useful tool, especially for things like kick drums. And then there's the original. I can also put an envelope on this. For a lot of these percussion sounds, you don't necessarily want to do that because you just want the sound and you want to be done with it. But sometimes, let's say I didn't want this to actually be like a real kick. I wanted this to fade in. No problem. Put a volume envelope. We know what envelopes are from working with Absinthe. Let's give it some attack time. You can actually see that reflected down here in the window, and now the sound will fade in. And you can pretty easily shape your sounds that way. In addition, let's turn that off. We have a pitch envelope down here, which will allow us to really shape the tuning of it over time as well. And you can see this. It's kind of hard to see, I think, but you can see that red line right there. Right, it starts really fast and then scrolls down very quickly and then bounces right back up. This is very similar to like what a scratching DJ might sound like. Right, because that's what they're doing. They're rolling the record very quickly with their hand, pushing it forward and then stopping it, and then playing it, releasing and letting it go back at normal speed. That's the exact kind of sound right there. But really, you can use the pitch envelope. The most useful use of it, I think, in the world of percussion, is to actually start your pitch really high and then drop it. And this will add a little extra attack. You can hear that chop, chop, chop right at the beginning of the sound. Listen to it with it off. It's much lower. It's more ba, ba, ba. This has got that much faster chop, chop, chop up higher in the frequency spectrum. So that can be a useful tool. Over here, I'm going to skip over most of these. Most of these I don't really want to deal with in this video because, again, this is sort of an overview, and this is if you really want to build your own percussion instruments, you can. We'll go to effects. It does have a number of effects. In my experience, the most useful ones in working with a drum sampler are going to be things like your compressor, which will just allow us to bring back the dynamic range as well as shape some of the transients a little bit. So for instance, if I have a really, it already has a long attack, let's lower the threshold and make this really severe so it's really obvious to listen to. You can hear, oh, that was a little too much, but now I've given it actually a much sharper attack. I'll explain how to do this in a few other compressor videos later on. If you already know how to use it though, this is how you get to the compressor on each sample. So each sample will have its own compressor on it. And that's what makes it so cool and somewhat different than Contact. Contact is really, using global effects, and you can set it up so that, you will only use a certain effect in a certain note or two, but Battery is just set up that way by default. Every sound gets its own effect chain and its own cell and its own everything. And that's basically how percussion works, right? You have a drum, you have a cymbal, you have all these different instruments all together, and they all do their own thing. And battery is set up like that. So that can be kind of a cool sound. We could add some EQ. That sounds terrible, but maybe you want that sound. Maybe you just want it to thump too. Let's turn that off for now. So again, these are probably the two most useful. We can also make it lo-fi in terms of digital kind of distortion. We can also just add noise. It's just gated noise. So it's playing white noise, and whenever there's signal coming in, it'll just let more noise in. We don't really want to do that here, I don't think. And the saturator will add a little bit of distortion, similar to like what a guitar amplifier might do. It's become a little distorted. Get that amplifier-driven kind of sound. So that's your basic overview. If you want to load individual samples, do that through the browser. Windows, there we go. And you can actually just click and drag these onto the sample where you want them. Would you like to replace all currently mapped samples? Sure. And I've just loaded that clap and snare right there. And if I go to cell, this is actually F3, which is right there on my keyboard. But let's say I wanted it to be F sharp. So I'm playing F sharp right now, but nothing's coming out. Very easy to do in battery. All I have to do is hit learn, hit F sharp, and now it's mapped to F sharp. Now if I play F, it doesn't work anymore. Okay, so anyway, that's your quick overview of battery. I hope that gives you the confidence to sort of open up and start playing around with it. Again, highlights are presets. Select your presets from here. You can load individual samples into cells using the browser. If you activate the cell, for each sample in each cell, you can tune it, change the envelope of the volume as well as the pitch, and add effects, individual effects to that cell as well. Again, if you want these things to go to different outputs, all you have to do is go back down here to channel, activate the different output, and make sure you configure Cubase to read from those other outputs as well. Okay, I'll see you guys in the next video where we'll be learning more about some advanced MIDI editing techniques.